What is going on, my specialists? SPC here, and finally, welcome back to an all-new episode of Tales of a Star Wars Fan. We had another great guest on the show today, so please help me in welcoming one of my two co-hosts from my Mandalorian-related podcast, the Talkalorian Live. Please welcome Nerdy Leon, a.k.a. Brandon. How are you doing today, man? Thank you so much for being our next guest.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. We've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
But yeah, finally we get to talk about this. This is long awaited. I think when you first told me, I was like, yeah, like not even a hesitation. It was like, yeah, I'm doing this. So really excited that I'm on.
Well, that is good to hear. So if you guys don't remember, and obviously Brandon, I already told you a couple times before we started, but it's just 5 pretty simple, easy questions. Yeah, you can just take as long as you need to answer the question. And we're going to have some good discussions here today. So as for the first question, Brandon, what first got you into Star Wars?
So I will say this. So I'll preface with this. I grew up in the time where Phantom Menace, like I became aware of like media during like when Phantom Menace came out. I saw it in theaters. It came out on VHS, like we all remember. It wasn't really like, oh man, like I must hit it, because I think at the same time like my interest was like Pokemon and so like really I think when I grew up, when Force Awakens really came up, that was when I was like really into it, because I was like kind of like I was aware of Star Wars. I hated the prequels because of really like at that time I was like, man, I just can't stand Hayden Christensen in his like attitude and the way he talks, and Padme on, like, you are hurting my heart, like that stuff. Like I was like, man, that is some cheesy lines. Anyways, but like, but when Force Awakens came out, I had a lot of buddies that like really loved it, and it was just like, I don't know, it awakened a lot of like some of like the fandom for me, because like that's when I watched Force Awakens, and that's like when theories started like really rolling, because you didn't know who, you know, some of the people in, like who Poe was, who Finn was, who Rey is. Like we all like loved like talking back and forth. We would get a huge group together and go see Force Awakens like 3 or 4 times, like, and then like Clone Wars, I got into Clone Wars like shortly after. I didn't grow up with Clone Wars. Like Clone Wars just captivated me. Like it was just like every single episode was like an adventure. Like I loved James Arnold Taylor. I loved Matt Lanner as Anakin, and then Ashley as Ahsoka. Like it grew on me, and you just like it became more of just like my way of life. And so it was hard, because like I didn't really grow up with a great home, but like I was always have like the remastered, and I actually have 2. I think I have episode 6 and 7 that are the non-remastered. No, I have 5 and 6. Sorry, I have I have 4 and 5. Apologize. I have original Star Wars, because it wasn't A New Hope. It was just Star Wars, and it was and then I think Return of the Jedi. So I'm not sure if that was Fiverr. I get mixed up on those sometimes. But it was I don't know. It was just a good time. I don't know. It like I always enjoyed it. I think when I was more of an adult and I could buy my own things, it was more fun to kind of like um watch the shows, watch Rebels, watch didn't touch Resistance. The It just looked too kiddish for me. And then but like I love like Rebels, I think is honestly like Clone Wars and Rebels are like to me pinnacle storytelling when it comes to Star Wars. It's like it flows, there's urgency, like you have very few plot holes, you have everything connects. Um and it's just like there's always like a new adventure. It's not like Bad Batch. Like it's hard because it's like you've met these guys in season 7 of Clone Wars for a very short time, and then you are supposed to feel something for them, and then it's hard because you never actually really like feel for them because there's always like this thing where they could be bad, and it's like during Order 66, it's really difficult to like any clones really. And so it's real hard, but like, so that's really it. I think when to answer the question originally, it was when I was an adult. When I was first married, bunch of good Star Wars buddies got me really into it. And then I just like got obsessed from there. So
Yeah, I always love hearing that kind of stuff because obviously, I'm a huge fan of The Force Awakens. I mean, it really revitalized and reignited my love for the franchise. And again, I always say it, now my fandom has basically exploded once again. I have all sorts of stuff that I've collected over the last almost decade now that Star Wars has been back. And I always love like telling my part of the story too, because like when I first started watching Star Wars, it was like the week of the trailer for the Phantom Menace. So it's like my fandom was like just in line with catching up now with everything, sitting down watching all the films with my dad and being able to basically start off now with the prequels. And it was just, I don't know, man, it was just a great time. And growing up watching those films over the next 9 years of my life was just an incredible time to be a fan.
Yeah, it really was too, because it was like, even though I think Disney kind of have put their like formula in it with money, right? They want to sell the merch, they want to sell, figures and all these tales and make it streaming and blah blah blah, right? They want it like, and they want it to sell. I don't think like Lucasfilms really cared from that point of view when it had the first 6 movies. Like that wasn't really like the thought process. Now it had to make money somehow, right? But like I don't think that was the case. Now the sequels, I think Force Awakens was like $1 billion. Like it just made oodles of money, right? And then they capitalized it, which is a business thing to do. But you kind of don't have the thought process of like, what's the long-term effects? And I think that's what kind of Marvel's going through right now is like, what's the long-term effects? Because you're not going to have that same magic in the movie theater that you had again. So
I will say that's been one of like the big cons about mostly everything going to streaming lately. I mean, obviously it was rumored years ago we were supposed to get an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. Obviously that got turned into a show. Obviously a lot of people know how that one went. It didn't work for a lot of people. And even same thing too with all these other different forms of media we've been getting from Disney since they took over. I mean, we're getting shows, books. We've gotten 5 films already out of the series now. We've got, like you said, we got all the figures. Like it's merchandising is basically all it feels like Star Wars has been lately, instead of taking the time to actually like focus on what needs to go on, like story wise. Obviously, we're both really big fans of the Ahsoka show. Obviously, we just got done talking about it here a few weeks back at the time of this recording.
Yes.
And obviously, it's one of the better of the storytelling, even to like things like the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Whether or not I guess you agree with this one, but I feel like Rogue One definitely did a great job with its storytelling, leading us into the events of A New Hope and carrying on.
You just don't like Andor. That's fine.
I don't. I'm not a big fan of Andor. That'll be a big surprise for a lot of people because it's one of the better shows for some people. Yeah, man, different folks, different strokes. Everybody likes what they like, doesn't like what they don't like. I mean, again, I say it all the time. I'm a sequels fan. I've even just in general, I have a mostly positive review on everything that Disney's done here over the last 8 years that they've been making Star Wars content. But obviously, I'm just a rare breed.
Yeah, I think especially with Disney Plus, it's like a lot of the time it's just like, man, that was good, but it could have been way better. And it's like, dude, you could have like actually, it's like, sure, we all know Obi-Wan really, like, he really was like torn up about Anakin, and I think that was like his brother. That was like he treated him like his family. Like it was like half of them basically died that day. But like, you can't tell me like Qui-Gon, like you can't have flashbacks of like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and like him and Satine. Like Satine was like he was going to leave the Jedi Order for Satine at some point. Like you can't tell me like there's not like any flashbacks that you can't have where it's just like he's tortured himself over all of that. And I don't know, it's just like yeah, sure, like the whole kidnapping and like your focus is on this sister, Inquisitor, and it's just like, man, like you could have done so much better than that. And you just settle like you it's like I don't know, it's just like it could have been a better story. Like there was no urgency. I didn't like it, really didn't captivate me. The choreography, like fights, were okay. Like the end probably is, the only thing I can think of is like every time Darth Vader was on the scene, it's probably the most interesting part of like that whole show. And and he's only on there for like four episodes for like maybe 20 minutes tops, really. Like I don't know, it's just hard for us to be really excited when you fail to like one prevent or make an antagonist more or equal to the Emperor and Darth Vader, which there are. It's just you just need to like get off your get out of your own way. So
Yep, I would highly agree with that. So now on to the next question. What's your favorite thing about Star Wars?
I think my favorite thing is it's another world, right? It's a world that it's like in a galaxy far, far away. It's like a world that is obviously not real, but it's like you think it is. It's realistic. They make everything like the effects are practical. They're like you think when you're a kid, it's like this is actually probably a galaxy, and you imagine outside of the world you live in, of like this could be real and this could be happening. And this, it's like that imagination is there because it's like they do such a good job to make it relatable. They do such a good job to like make it where it's like I could be it's like a whole point of like Anakin or Luke, both really. It's like they were slaves, they were no one, and they were great. And it's like that's always a story that's gonna resonate with anyone. Where it's like you start from the bottom and are you're up here, and so I think that's always like it's always great to see, and it's interesting, and also too it's like that's like my favorite thing. My second is like the stories behind it, where it's like the connection of like I love how the emperor's plan of Order 66 was basically inevitable. Like all the Jedi in the world or in the galaxy could not prevent Order 66, which is crazy to me. But it worked. And it worked flawlessly. Now there was like a clone that was like inhibitor chip, but it was just like you rooted for it, but like you knew it was going to happen anyway. But like throughout that whole thing, it's like you always wondered in the first three movies, how did they not know? They could literally read minds, and but like because like the emperor is right there, and like of course we know that, but they don't. But it's also very interesting because it's like throughout the Clone Wars we get to learn like how like basically Yoda knew, but he couldn't do anything. And so that's just like it's so interesting, and so like the storytelling behind it, it doesn't make it like as a kid you probably don't see it, but like as an adult you see it from high up and it's crazy. So
Yeah, that's the thing I've definitely loved about Star Wars. I mean, obviously, everybody in life, we've all got our struggles, our trials, tribulations, however you want to word it. So I mean, Star Wars is, for me at least, a great escape from the world because no matter what film I watch, or any form of media or book or whatever, it takes me out of, just the struggles that you have in life. I mean, I think I talked about it a lot when I had Connor on for the first episode is, it's that escape from our reality that when you watch Star Wars, it sucks you in and you're just invested with what's going on. And like you said earlier, like with Luke and Anakin, how they're basically two sides of a coin. They both go through basically to some degrees the same thing. Obviously, Anakin goes in a much darker path compared to what Luke does. But for me, it's like you said, like it's just great storytelling. I mean, especially when you get to the original trilogy. I mean, you just have the farm boy who just wants to get out. He wants to go on his own adventure. He wants to go and make something of himself, not sit there and work on a moisture farm with his aunt and his uncle for the rest of his life. I mean,
yeah.
He wants to go out. He wants to be a pilot. He wants to do all this stuff. And eventually he does get thrown into the battle and ends up doing what he wants to do and even going further beyond than what he ever thought he could do. I mean, becoming, for a lot of people, the greatest Jedi ever to exist in the history of Star Wars. I mean, obviously that's up for debate who everybody thinks is the best or their favorite Jedi of all time. But for me, I mean, man, the Luke story, it's so captivating and just so realistic of even at the time, even to, 40 plus years later, it's still a very relevant story. It's something you can actually resonate with, wanting to do more, wanting to become something greater than where you're at right now. And again, obviously we see it, in the original trilogy. obviously, of course, you get to see it in that last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian, how much farther beyond he has gone since we first met him in A New Hope, and obviously too in later in the timeline we see kind of how Luke has both evolved but also kind of in some ways degraded himself and has not as great as he used to be, just trying to figure out his life and go through his own version of PTSD. So, but now on. Oh,
that's still. It's like when you watch the end and you see like Luke, and at the end of Force Awakens, and I remember like vividly when it was like, ah! Like the like when theaters back like Endgame and all of like when you would have a crowd and it would be like you would stand in line, right, for like new releases, there would be like an audible reaction. And I think like it was like so loud. Like I remember like my buddy like grabbing my arm and just like squeezing it as hard as he can because it was just like, dude, that's Luke. And we haven't seen him in, since forever. And it's just like, and that's where it's like, and then they turn around and they make him into this like bumbling fool. And I'm like, what? Why? And it's just like, you could have made that so much sweeter. And I don't know. It's just like, again, I get like the politics and everything really made that kind of a, like you turn like a really great moment into like, what? Like, that's it? Anyways, so.
Yeah, even to get to your point too that you said with like crowd reactions, I mean, I think that's another big reason why I hold The Force Awakens so high in not only just my Star Wars ranking, but like my overall favorite films of all time. I mean, man, the crowd that I was with that opening night, like everybody was audible. People were gasping, they were screaming, they were laughing, having a great time. And even when
it was like Han, Chewie, Leia, it was just like boom, 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 boom. And it was like, I think so loud every single time. Even the Millennium Falcon, like people were excited because about like a ship, like a starship, like there's just like so much there. Even if you're not like a huge fan, it's just like what the Millennium Falcon stands for, and so.
Even too, man, like the opening, like getting to see, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, getting the Star Wars logo, the iconic entrance theme, like everybody's clapping and screaming, having a great time. And man, even C-3PO in my theater got a lot of love. Yeah. Like Leia would come out, everybody was excited, and then all of a sudden you just see, good gracious, Han Solo, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's 3PO. Okay. I don't hate 3PO. I want to throw this out here. I love droids. I love pretty much every droid I have seen in Star Wars. 3PO is like a little bit lower on my list.
That's fair. Yes. I mean, you got some pretty premium droids. I mean, BB-8 it was a very he's probably my most favorite sequel character.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like Finn and Rey. Like Rey is good. It's just like Finn and Rey were handed a shit show from the very beginning. Like Finn, definitely they shot the bed with him. Man, like the writing, everything about him was terrible. But anyways, so.
Yeah, I still stand by the fact I think Finn from The Force Awakens is still the best version of the character. I'm not the biggest fan of him in Last Jedi, and he's like an in-between in Rise of Skywalker. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he's as good as he was in Force Awakens.
They forced a love thing, and then they got rid of it in Last Jedi. Like, how do you do that? Like, and like he was obviously not really into her. Like, and that was like the really awkward part is when it's like she was way more into him than she was into her. Because we all figured, at the same time, like they meet, right? Like Finn and Ray meet. We're like Finn and Ray have a thing, right?
Mhm,
We just assume like when a when a male and a female protagonist meet, we just always assume it always happens.
mhm,
Usually, right? It's like, Harry Potter, when or Hermione and Harry they liked each other or something at one point. Lord of the Rings, kind of the similar situation. Like every single time that trope is there, but like it's just I don't know. Like it just they ruined him so bad. Like and whoever that character that like that love triangle or whatever, like and then they give her like 8 seconds in the Rise of Skywalker. I think that's funny. But anyways.
yeah, they did not do much justice with the whole Finn and Rose and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh well, maybe a TV show will fix it.
Oh no.
All
Oh.
right, on to the next question. Who is your favorite Star Wars character?
This is I mean, uh this is hard because it's either Kanan or Ahsoka. Like Kanan Jarrus, I liked him. It's hard because like it's Kanan Jarrus or Ahsoka. I think Kanan Jarrus has the appeal because it's like he's obviously not very good initially, right? Like he's just like pretty much a guy that's rolled with this crew. He was a guy that escaped, like, and he like develops wisdom and like through the Bendu, like a physical manifestation of the Force, and he's worked with Ezra. But like you see that, and at the end, like his life was so impactful. Like the very end, um, when he died, it's like his eyes light up and he can see again. That was like that right there was like the most impact. Like I was just like, man, and like it was a believable love like relationship with Hera, like very believable. Like they wanted to like leave, and it was just like, man, I was getting uncomfortable because I was like, man, they really want to like, and they were like the parents, and
Mhm.
but like at the same time, like Ahsoka, I've liked Ahsoka. I don't think the very beginning, I don't think anyone really liked Ahsoka, and I think because they were gonna kill her off at some point, early on in Clone Wars. I really liked how she is and the development of Ahsoka. Like she was the one thing that I think personally is like I was like losing Ahsoka for Anakin was pretty much the turning point for Anakin. Like obviously it was, right? Because immediately after, Obi-Wan did this weird like mission where he acted like he was dead, and it was just like that kind of like nothing was there to reel in Anakin like Ahsoka. Like Ahsoka was not there to reel him in anymore. And because I think that was always the thing is like they always fed with each other. Um, and I just liked her in Rebels, where she becomes more wise and helps Ezra and Kanan, and just her. You can see in even in the Mandalorian, she gets her white lightsabers. Like, I mean, those things are honestly one of the coolest lightsabers ever. But like you could see her character development through 2 shows, or not 2 shows, 4 shows, like really showed. Honestly, and that's where it's like I love that, and she's a very like re- relatable character. She was able to like she was very always like thinking of others, like wanting to do better, um you know, thinking about life over death, you know, and it was always like something I loved. But if I had to pick, I'd probably say Kanan more, really. Yeah, Kanan's my favorite by far. So he just never really like I never not liked him. It was like he was always really cool, and like it was kind of like a dad figure. So it was really cool to see for Ezra.
I mean, even too, when you watch something like Rebels, I mean, he's technically not really like a knight. He kind of just gets, he finally does get knighted in that when he goes to the Sith temple and he ends up going into that room with the 2 royal guards, ends up fighting them both, and he finally gets knighted. I mean, he's basically the Padawan who is forced to become the master to show this essentially at that point in time, the next generation of Jedi and Force users, and trying to rebuild the order by himself almost until obviously his untimely demise during that escape, which I will willingly say is probably the most heartbreaking part of Rebels, because I wouldn't say Kanan's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, but I would definitely say out of everybody from the Rebel show, I ended up coming out really liking him the most. There's just something about him. I don't know, like the first maybe 2 to 3 episodes, I was kind of like, oh, okay. Not the biggest fan. Like I'll even say it too. It took me two and a half seasons to finally come around to Ezra. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of Ezra at the start of Rebels. It took a while. Maybe unpopular as of now. My favorite version of Ezra is from the recent Ahsoka show. I just like how he's developed as a character and as a Jedi, even though, we both wanted to see how he actually, grew in the Force. And obviously, he didn't want to take the lightsaber back from Sabine to fight, ends up crafting his own lightsaber in memory and in honor of Kanan. So obviously that was cool to see, honoring his master. But even too, getting to see Kanan in the first episode of the Bad Batch, I mean, we always heard about, seeing the clones, killing his master, and obviously getting to see that, expanding a little bit more on Kanan's story. I mean, there's obviously still quite a gap in Kanan's story from the end of that episode of Bad Batch into when we see him. I do know there is like a novel, I think it's called New Dawn, where he meets Hera and has an adventure with her, and that's kind of when their relationship kind of starts, and they start getting together, the Ghost Crew and all that. But it's just to how Kanan as well also really has to struggle with Ezra as well, because obviously, when you bring in a character like Darth Maul, who's so, cold, calculating, he's able to twist his words into a way where people are starting to believe him and maybe wanting to go with him. So that struggle between Maul and Kanan trying to get Ezra to go which way, obviously, it's some of the most powerful storytelling in animation, because I would probably say as of now, I think Rebels probably is my favorite of the animated shows. I do like Clone Wars. I have really come to like Bad Batch more than I honestly ever thought I would. I didn't know if I honestly was going to like the Bad Batch, but I like it quite a bit. I'm excited for season 3 when that comes out, but I would say Kanan is definitely a good choice of a character. Even Ahsoka too. I mean, obviously that's another character I took me a while to come around to was Ahsoka. Some of my favorite Ahsoka stuff overall is obviously the Siege of Mandalore. That to me is just the best Ahsoka period, in my opinion. And getting to see her on Malachor taking on Darth Vader in that final fight in the Twilight of the Apprentice episode. I mean, it's just some of the peak moments, not only just for Ahsoka, but even just in Star Wars in general.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, one thing there's two. One, it's hard because like there's a lot of great characters, and they're all really well written. And I think one of them, like if I had to say my favorite droid, obviously, hands down, Chopper, hands down my favorite character. Whenever he gets on. Two, my favorite funny character. What's his name? He was like the smuggler in Clone Wars. He was always like the king. No, it was like he was over a gang. I forget what his name is.
Are you talking about the pirate?
Yeah, the pirate.
Hondo?
Hondo. Yes. Hondo, honestly, every time he got on, he looked weird in Rebels. I don't know why, but he looked really weird. Like, I don't know why his animation didn't like carry over, but like he looked kind of I guess they try to want to make him like older, I guess, but man, in Clone Wars it was always fun when Hondo got on the scene, and he had really cool moments too where it's just like really redemptive, like him and Ezra or Jabba the Hutt like really loved each other, but like, and I really liked that. I think that was really fun. I will say, Ahsoka is like one of those characters is like you rooted for in like very intense moments, right? It's like she was the small, frail character with at start she only had one lightsaber, and like now she had two, but like she would do like incredible things, like I forget that insect planet, but them blowing up that insect planet, that was like when you were like, oh, she might die, like, and because it was like this, she had to blow up this factory and blah blah blah, but like I think overall it was, I don't know, it was just like a lot of things, like, and then you like she's just jumping on ships doing acrobat things, and then you can see how she just got really good going forward. I think it was like she tried to go like I think she had fought Savage, or she tried to fight Maul for sure, or no, Empress. What's her name?
Asajj?
Ventress, and it was just like you're never going to like. She always like tested her skills, but always lost, and it's just like, man, if you just listen. But like even as a general, she was very very good. I think it was one where she had the basically do there was like a blockade on a planet, and she made that maneuver where it was just like, I mean, it was very well done, and Anakin even like was like, I think Anakin was hurt. That's why she had to step up because Anakin had gotten blown up, and he was hurt at the time, so they relied on her. So I don't know. There's just so many. That's where it's so hard. But Ahsoka is, I think, that and Kanan are really close. So.
I guess I never did ask you, though, when we were actually doing our podcast, do you think that Rosario Dawson represented Ahsoka good, or do you think that it was kind of removed from how she was in the previous projects?
No, she's always worked with Ashley very closely, and I have all the confidence. I think she did very well. Like, there needed to be progression from Rebels to Mandalorian uh, to Ahsoka show, where it was like we know there was growth in between that, where I think she was more like her early teen or 20s. Now she's kind of her like 30s. We don't know the exact, but like according to wisdom, I see that's where I see where she's like more laid back. She's understanding. She looks from a bird's eye view. She doesn't immediately react, even though she's not perfect. She does very well. I think the fighting was fantastic. I think you still saw that, even where it's like even better, where it's like she went to different techniques and she didn't have to use both. And it's just hard to like really. It is hard to go. I need to see. Like we got. I mean, let's be honest. We got one episode in Mandalorian. Then we got an episode maybe in Boba Fett, and then we got eight and one. So we got like 10 maybe. It's hard to like really gauge that when we've had 3 shows or 2 shows with Ashley. So yeah, so I don't know. It's hard to really do that because she got to fledge her character a lot more than Rosario. But I do think Rosario in general is just a great actress, especially for Disney. With Marvel, she was the nurse. She did something else.
She's in the new Haunted Mansion movie that just came out.
She's great. I think she's fantastic. I think she does a great job. When I met her in Dallas, she's very sweet, very laid back. She was on Clerks. She was in Clerks, so it's like she has a wide range of doing everything, and I think honestly, I loved her as Ahsoka. So,
okay.
What did you think?
I felt for what I remember about Ahsoka, because it's been quite a while since I've watched Clone Wars. Obviously, the most recent thing Clone Wars I watched was season 7 with her and the Mortez sisters. That whole little mini arc that I didn't really enjoy all that much. And obviously, of course, the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore, which I'm still going to continue to say should have been an animated movie. That would have been probably one of the best Star Wars movies ever put to screen, personally. But I feel like to some degrees, I feel like she captures the character good. And I don't know how to like really word it or like put my finger on it, but there's just kind of something about the way she is, like the way she acts and kind of like the mannerisms she gives. I just don't think she entirely captures the character, because obviously, too, I said that too about some of the other characters from Ahsoka, like Sabine. I don't think the gal who played Sabine really captured the character as well as I wanted it to, because Sabine's probably my second favorite character from Rebels. And I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I think she's a phenomenal actress. Everything I've seen her in is great. Even
Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim is awesome. Obviously, I like her in 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think that's probably one of her best performances.
Don't say Final Destination.
For you, I won't. But I do like that film. That's my favorite Final Destination film. But I don't know. I feel like she's halfway there. I'd have to see kind of how the end game is. I'd have to see how she is, whether we get a second season of Ahsoka or whether we're going to see her version of Ahsoka in this upcoming Heir to the Empire film. So
it probably won't be a second season based off the viewership of hours or something. And I suspect they cut back a lot because they just doubled their hours on, or doubled the price on Disney Plus.
Yep. We still have we still have what? We have Skeleton Crew coming out. We have the Acolyte coming out.
Yeah, I think there's just so many like honorable mention characters like Captain Rex. Like Captain Rex is a fantastic character, even through the original, like the original movies. Like um, he's in the Battle of Endor, and it's like he's the guy with the gray beard, and you only know that because of the credits in I think it was
Yeah, Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi, and it's like, and he's in there for a moment where it's just like he's one of the rebel guys with the full gray beard. And it's like, and then you go back in Rebels and he has a full gray beard and he's like the same character. It's like, it's so cool. Like that right there, like Captain Rex, he gets so much respect because one, he's like best friends to Anakin and Ahsoka. And like um he's the one that helped Ahsoka escape in season 7, I'm pretty sure, right? And
Yep.
did Commander Cody did not survive, right?
He did, because we see him in season 2 of the Bad Batch. He does a mission with Crosshair.
Okay. Yeah, because Commander Cody, that's another one I really like. Really, I mean, that's like Grievous is a good character. It's just so many that is just like really, really done well. Grievous done well. I mean, Maul. It's hard. Like it's hard because I don't like him because everyone likes him. Does that make sense? Because like everyone's like just loves him, and I'm like, I get it. Like he's great. Like just stop trying to convince me. Like I don't. Um, and then like it's just I mean Thrawn obviously. Just there's so many, and like Balin, I wish, rest in peace, but like there's just like if we got him in a movie, like in a show or something, that would have been so cool. His own show spinoff, that would have been so dope. Um, so anyways.
Yes. Unfortunately, someone taken away way too soon, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, probably one of the two next most important questions that I have for you, Brandon. The next one is, what is your favorite Star Wars moment?
Man. Shoot. Well, I would say my first, really, it had to be my favorite Star Wars moment had to be when I first got back into Star Wars, and it was the Ray versus Ben Solo, or aka Kylo Ren. That fight really got me hyped. I think that was like the pinnacle moment where I was like, all right, this could be really, really good. Because it's like it added the like, oh, he killed his dad, like you killed Han Solo, how dare you? Like I was like, what? And um and then like it's still hard because it's like you can't kill him because Leia still loves him. Like bring in like the fact is like Han loved Kylo Ren and loved Ben Solo, like loved him, and even told Leia like I'm gonna get him back, I'm gonna bring him back, And there was that moment where you've always seen where it's like you see like the blue, and then all of a sudden like that red turns back on, and their whole like persona turns red, and it's like, oh no. And even like till today, it's like when you, it's like you know it's gonna happen. It's like, oh. And but like the fight where it's just like Ray gets the lightsaber, um, and just slices up Kylo Ren, and then the world just opens up. I think that would have been, that was like one of the coolest moments. My second one from that movie was seeing Luke again. That was like one of the coolest moments. And then I'd say probably third. Um, Probably third. I would probably say when the first episode of Mandalorian, because it's like our kind of retune of it. It's like, oh, we had Clone Wars, we had Rebels, and I was like still kind of on that high, kind of declining because it was like nothing's come out yet. And it was like that first episode of Mandalorian. It was just like, this is good. Like, and it's like, and you see that first face of like baby, at the time, baby Yoda, right?
Yep.
And it's like, what? and then the theories start over again, and it's just adds to the beauty of it. I think those are my top three, really. Obviously there's a lot of good fights. Like, man, the fights are always great. I think those are always powerful and great. But I think those are my top three moments right there.
Okay, very good choices. I know the last couple episodes I've had, a lot of people always end up going with the final episode of season 2 of Mando with Luke's return. I mean, kind of hard to not pick a moment like that because obviously, again, for all the people who aren't sequels fans, obviously the return of Luke for them was highly disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would agree with you too with the moment of having Luke turn around. You see the mechanical hand. You don't get to see the iconic glove that we got to see in Return of the Jedi. I mean, even still to this day, like every time you get that music swells up and he turns around, I still get the goosebumps every time. It's always hard for me to pick what my favorite moment is because I mean I have like a favorite moment from like each film overall. So I mean it's always hard for me to juggle which moment from anything Star Wars is like my favorite of all time. I mean it's hard not to pick the iconic "I am your father" moment from Empire Strikes Back. So
Yeah.
even to like Force Awakens has some of my favorite Star Wars moments, like Ray and them running to the Falcon. I mean, that's a big one. I obviously really like the scene that you said that you really like probably the most is the fight between Ray and Kylo and her getting the lightsaber. I mean, it's kind of hard not to pick that one too for me. I mean, that's the thing about Star Wars is there's so many iconic moments. Again, whether it's film, whether it's TV. I mean, in that first episode of Mandalorian, I will still say it, to me that's the best episode of the Mandalorian overall, personally. And for the final question, what is your favorite Star Wars film?
All right. So at the time, I didn't like when this first movie first came out. I did not have high hopes for this movie, or I did not like it really at all, and I don't think I appreciated it at the time. But I will say Rogue One is my favorite top because the storytelling, not using Jedi was a very bold move. And then 3, like you get to see like the back, the like the behind the scenes really, but also it's shot beautifully. Like probably the most beautiful shot Star Wars movie I've ever seen. Like there were shots there that were just like the world where, like basically the plans are like from above, and like all the world, like you get to see the fighting and the different parts of this planet, and then like you see characters that you love, like the guy that plays It Man, I forget his name.
Donnie Yen.
Yeah, and like he's an instant like a really lovable character because he's blind. I mean, and he just like he'll like blow up a random TIE fighter, like it's just like that kind of cool stuff. Like, and the whole time is like, in his like the force, I'm one with the force and the force is with me. Like that will like always stick with you, when and especially when he like died. Like it was just so cool. Like every moment was just so cool to see. Um, and then at the end, like you have such a great moment. I mean, not even including Leia and like how she gets on with and gives the stuff to R2 and C3PO, but you have a wonderful like hall scene with Darth Vader just going ham on everybody. Like that was just, it was horrifying and so beautiful at the same time. And then like you just see like I think this is the first time we see the Death Troopers.
Yep.
In this, where it's just like they're on that cold planet and they're just massacring this whole family, and she's the only one left, and then they like blow up, and then you get very like in the planet moments when they blow it up with the Death Star. Like those are really crazy moments, and it's full of them. Now, like you could say Cassian Andor, like I didn't particularly love his character because it's like it's hard to really like him because the first part of it is like he kills someone and you're like, but why? Why'd you do that?
Yep.
And it was just like you didn't have to do that. Like it's just like you just killed someone that was giving you information, and then you made it worse. Anyways, but it was just, I don't know. It was just so good. I forget what the guy's name. Who's the rebel that was in pretty much everything. That was in there. That has the suit, the oxygen suit.
Oh, Jesus! Why can't I think of what his name is now?
I forget his name.
Forrest Whitaker's character, right?
Yes.
I can't think of what his name is now. Yeah, I know he's in Andor. I remember him being in there. He's even in Clone Wars, which is crazy, and he's in Bad Batch, and he's also in Rebels.
Yeah, he's in everything.
I can't think of what his name is, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, he was an interesting character. I will say probably overall, though, I didn't really care much for him as an overall character. But
I mean, knowing him from Clone Wars, he makes a lot of sense now. Like it makes sense now that I know about like watching him in Clone Wars. It does, like his character makes sense, right? Like,
and he's also in Fallen Order, the video game. I forgot about that. He's also in there.
Oh yes, he is, because he's when you go to the Wookiee. Yeah, Ashik. Yeah, the Wookiee planet, and he's there, and that's where you and Cal meet, or Cal meets him. But yeah, I can't say much like more than with Rogue One. Like it's just like when you look at like Han Solo, like Solo, like that's the pinnacle mid, right?
Mhm.
Like it's just not good. Like it's not very memorable. Like I still this day I know Woody Harrelson's in it. Uh, that's pretty much it. Like he meets Chewie. Like it's not really like an important movie. I mean, you meet Lando and all that, but it's like I don't care. Like it's very forgettable. Um but then you got the sequels, you got the prequels, and you got the original. It is really hard to say Return of the Jedi is not anyone's favorite. Um it's just that one's a really good one, but I would say by far my favorite, seeing it, remembering it, how beautiful it was shot, the storytelling, that like you didn't realize until the very end how it just flowed right into the next movie, which was so funny. But I I, I loved it. So
Yeah, it's hard not to have Rogue One high up on the list. Like for years, I used to say that was my favorite Disney Star Wars film. I mean, it's hard not to because I mean, for me though, like the probably the weakest thing about it is the characters. I mean, a lot of the characters are pretty weak. I mean, I had hopes for Jyn Urso as a character. I liked her when I first saw the film, but every time now that I've seen it here on, I she's kind of a weaker character.
mhm.
Chirrut, he's easily my favorite character in all of Rogue One. Just he steals the show every time he is on the screen. And I know our mutual friend Andy, our other co-host from the Talkalorian, I know that's his favorite Star Wars film. I always word this film as this could be the casual Star Wars fans' favorite film of all time
Mhm.
because like you're like the fourth or fifth person I've met who's said that Rogue One's their favorite Star Wars film. And it's a very respectful choice. I mean, I can see why some people maybe aren't like the biggest fans of, like lightsabers, the Force, all that stuff that we're so used to seeing in so many other properties of Star Wars. So, and I mean, you can just watch it as a casual war film that takes place in space. Like, even if you just know about the stuff in the original trilogy, like Darth Vader, the Death Star, things like that, you can go into this and end up loving it. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I've again talked to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, Rogue One, that's a great movie." Like just a
Mhm.
movie in general, they say is great. Like I'll say it's my fourth favorite Star Wars film of all time. It might climb the ranks a little bit more. It's been a while since I've seen it though, but I I genuinely really enjoy it. That's why I will say, obviously not to dig on the show anymore like I normally like to do, but that's why I had a little bit of excitement for Andor. I wanted to see if that was going to lead into Rogue One. Obviously, it ended up not doing that. Supposedly, season 2 is supposed to do it a little bit more. It's supposed to start tying in more with Rogue One. So maybe I will like season 2 more than I liked season 1. But I also would agree. Again, that's probably the other reason I don't like Andor, the show, is because I don't like Cassian Andor as a character. I just, the decisions he makes in Rogue One, even the decisions he makes in the actual Andor show. He makes a couple where I'm like, okay, yeah, you're not too bad of a character now, but he's just the character I've come out never really caring for or liking that much. So that's again, I think that is one reason why it hurts the ranking I have for Andor.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, he's. I know what you mean. Like there are like kind of it's hard because it's like you don't really like the character, but I think like a part of even in Andor, I think part of it is like kind of it's a little bit of the point, right? It's like it's to show that Cassian is this nobody that's made into this big character, and he became like the focal point of like a rebellion, which was interesting because it was like he wasn't even like on the radar. He had talent, but like when it came it down, it was like it was Mon Mothma and the Collector, or I don't remember his name, but like they were the two that basically made like set the stuff in motion. But like, I mean, it's hard because like it is really hard. I mean, because like when you think about it, um Revenge of the Sith, right? That's a really like, other than like a few of the character, like the script a little kind of like basically Padme died because she was sad. Like it was like that is just kind of like really like it hurt. And I get it because it was actually like kind of Anakin doing it, but like in the even Return of the Jedi probably is my second, and it's just like every part of that is just so good, right? Obviously, I would probably pick more of the non-remastered. Like, there's nothing wrong with that movie, and then putting CGI in it, it's just like there's no point. Like you change the song at the end, like, and I get the Force Ghost thing. I kind of get that because like Anakin, like it kind of is reinforced in Ahsoka. Like there's a reason why that was the case. Why he was young and not old. Um, because it's supposed to show like I guess his redemptive, like when he was supposed to show like Anakin actually died and Darth Vader was took over. So I get that. And so um I just don't like Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. Like still don't really hold up to me as really good to be honest. Like Rise of Skywalker, how it starts, I'm like, what is happening? And it just like immediately starts, and I'm like, I'm not into that. So
Yeah, like I said before, like I get why some people aren't big fans of things Disney's done. I can respect the decisions, but it does seem like Rogue One does get a little bit more love than probably most of the films do. I mean, I will say, I like Solo. I like it quite a bit, but obviously it's like lower in my ranking just because I love other films before it. But I've always said I feel like that should have been the very first Disney Plus Star Wars show. I think it would have been very successful. We could have probably gotten a couple of seasons of Solo just on some like random wild little adventures with him and Chewie and maybe occasionally Lando. And obviously now, we're not getting a Lando show anymore. Now, for whatever reason, we're getting a Lando movie. I personally think that's not the right decision to go with that, but maybe I'll eat my words. Never know. We will see whenever or if it actually comes out, since there's been so many Star Wars films announced. Now they're shelved. There's been Ryan Johnson trilogy. Nobody's ever heard a word about that for the last couple of years. We have Rogue Squadron that's been shelved now. There's 2 or 3 other ones, but now we have the new Jedi Order film, the Dawn of the Jedi film, Heir to the Empire film coming out. So I'm excited for the future of Star Wars, but I know why some people are probably a little more skeptical of what's coming out next.
yeah, I think it's just having some type of clear vision would be very nice because it's just like Marvel is like we had a clear vision. There was Captain America, there was Iron Man, Hulk, and like all these Avengers, and we watched every movie, and it kind of flowed a little bit. Like here, it's just like go to Mandalore, and then they release like it's and like all these other things, and it's mid, like not very good, and it just doesn't flow very well. and then you get that fatigue where it's like, man, I don't know where I'm at. I gotta watch like a bunch of shows just to make sure I know what's going on here, and I'm like, I don't have time for that. And so, and like even in where you guys talked about in your debate over Force Awakens, it's like even just to watch Force Awakens, to like clear all of that up, I gotta read like 2 books, and it's like, man, if I gotta read 2 books just to make sure I fill every plot hole in Force Awakens, it's like, what's the point of me watching this movie? So I don't know. It's just kind of, we'll see how it goes. I just want them to like pick a project and like complete it, and then work on another project and complete that and have a good timeline. So,
Yep, I agree.
we just need to resurrect Ray Stevenson and have him play everything. So,
yes, I would agree. But you guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Tales of a Star Wars Fan. I want to thank Brandon for coming by. Brandon, like I do every time with the show, where can we find you? And is there anything you'd like to plug?
I'm on YouTube, obviously. Nerdy Leon. I do shorts. I'll be visiting or future. I'll do co-host with Andy, King's Comics, and SB Unleashed with Austin, with the Talkalorian. I think sometime we'll get back to doing some Funko openings and kind of showing my collection, and then kind of seeing what's going on. I'm going to try to next year probably get back to actually recording at some of the conventions I go to, and actually get some good content from that. So,
But guys, that is going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys head on up above and check out the other 2 episodes of the Tales of a Star Wars Fan podcast that I have. We talked to Connor from Not That Bad a Movie podcast, as well as Star Wars Sith from the Star Wars Sith YouTube channel. And with that being said, you guys, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.